Modesty Matters. We're a business dedicated to providing products for modesty-minded families. We are right now in the middle of a pandemic called COVID-19, as many of you know. And one thing we want to do is to be able to provide a way for you to make facial masks very simply. So we're gonna make one of these, and we're gonna make it by hand for those of you that don't have a sewing machine. So let's get started. Okay, before we get started, here are the things you're going to need. You're going to need 2 pieces of fabric that are going to be 9 inches by 8 inches. You're going to need thread and a needle. And you're going to need 2 other pieces of fabric that are going to need to be cut to 4 inches by 1.5 inch. 4 inches by 1.5 inch. Scissors, a ruler, and then you will need something like elastic. This is a very small elastic and it is cut to 12 inches. You will need 2 of those pieces. If you don't have that, feel free to use what you do have, even if it's yarn. The first thing we're going to do is prepare our smaller pieces. We're going to take these pieces that are like this. We're going to press those in half, and then I'm going to press 1/4 inch and 1/4 inch. I'm going to turn those. I'm going to press about another 1/2 inch on the sides. So we're going to end up with something that looks like this. 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, and then press directly in half. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our larger piece here and we're going to stitch by hand. We're going to stitch right along the longer edges. As I said, we're going to stitch by hand, and how we're going to do that is by taking 3 stitches and then locking the stitch. Let me show you what I mean by that. To begin, we will take our thread that is doubled and knotted on the end, just like this, and we're going to take our beginning stitch. From there, I'm going to stitch 1, 2, 3 times. So I have those 3 on my needle right here. I'm going to pull that all the way through. Just like this. And then I'm going to double back on this very first stitch. I'm going to put the needle right back in this hole and right back out this hole. And in doing that, I keep these 3 stitches from moving. I'm going to do that all the way across my piece. Okay, now I'm at the end of my seam. I'm going to do my last lock stitch. And then I'm going to tie it off. I'm just making a knot at the very end. Usually make a loop and then hold your finger there while you pull it. That usually knots it off nicely. Okay, clipping my threads. Now to reiterate, I did 3 stitches and I would go back through that and I would lock the stitch. 3 more stitches, lock, lock, all the way across. That keeps the seam nice and secure, and it keeps it from being able to pull and pucker. It's a good way to have a nice secure seam. Now I'm going to press those stitches, both the front and the back. Then I'm going to turn my piece right side out. Just like this. Once I've done that, I'm going to press it again. Now that I've pressed both the bottom and the top of my piece, I'm going to fold it in half, just like this. I'm going to press it just slightly, just so that I can give myself a center mark. Just a place of reference. From my line of reference, I'm going to make a pleat, about 1/2 inch, going this way. Let me measure that. I want 1/2 inch going this way, and I'd like it to go all the way across. So I'm going to measure it, try to get that 1/2 inch all the way across. Okay, so I have it about 1/2 inch all the way across. And then I'm going to go in the opposite direction, and I'm going to make a pleat going this way. And I'm going to press that all the way across as well. Now that I've made that center box pleat, I'm going to add 2 side pleats right here. And it's going to be about 1 inch from the bottom of that pleat and over here, the same. I'm going to press those in place. And now we'll add our side seams. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is take our casing pieces that we pressed earlier, and we're going to pin those to the sides of our mask. Here's the front of our mask with our folds in place. We're going to take our casing piece, we're going to open it back up, and folding it over, you see where we want that to line up. Line up there, folding it over, lining up here. We want the raw edges lined up just like this. Oops, I missed the raw edge on that one. There we go. So you want to be able to fold it over and see that that lines up. Fold and fold, line up right here. Raw edges lined up, raw edges lined up, and I'm going to pin all the way across this. All right, what we have here is the underside of our mask. I have it lined up with the raw edges together, and see this overlaps right here and right here. And I have it pinned. What I'm going to do is stitch right along this crease that I pressed into it. To do that, I'm going to start from underneath. And I'm going to take a couple of beginning stitches right along that crease. Just a lock stitch, just like this. A couple of times stitching. You can see right over the edge of that. Then I'm going to begin to stitch right along this crease. And I'm going to stitch and then we're going to take a back stitch. And I'm going to take a long stitch. You can see, here's the thread coming up right here. I put it right back in that hole, and I'm taking a longer stitch. I'm kind of doing the leapfrog. right along this seam, right along this crease line. I'm going to go in the hole, and I'm going to come back out just past where the thread is coming out. I'm going to come in, and I'm going to come out right along that crease line. You see, I'm kind of leapfrogging. Now you're welcome to take these pins out along the way as you go. Like I could take this one and this one out because that is secure in place. And to keep yourself from poking yourself. Yes, I finished my seam. I'm going to go through. I want to make sure on the back that I take a few stitches to make sure I secure the very end there and tie it off. See what I did? There's the seam all the way across, and here is that seam all the way across on this side. Okay, I'm going to tie that off. And I'll show you the next part. Now that I have stitched my piece, I'll show you the back side and I'll show you the front side where I stitched. I'm going to fold that back over, just like this. I'm going to fold this in place, fold this in place. Let me show you that again. I'm folding this over, and I'm folding this over. Right here also. And I'm going to pin that in place. Okay, just a reminder, this is the front of our mask, and we've already stitched this. This is the back of our mask. And what I've done is I've pinned this in place. And I don't know if you can see, I hope you can see this overlaps just a little bit. So this is, we're going to sew along this right here, all the way across, just like this. And you will use actually thread that looks good with this so that it won't show. I'm using this just to make sure that you're able to see. I'm going to start right here at the edge. Make it nice and secure. I'm going to make sure that I put some nice strong stitches right here at the very end, because this will take a lot of the wear and tear right here at the edge. So I'm gonna make sure that I stitch this nice and soundly right at the very edge. Now, just as I did on the other side, I'm going to do that whole leapfrog stitch. Stitch, I'm going to come back, I'm going to stitch just like this. Here I'm coming out the middle, coming out the other end, and I'm going to go all the way across, doing exactly the same thing that I did on the other side, only, and I want you to see this, only I'm sewing right along this. Not on the red here, but I'm going right along the edge instead. All right, here's what I've done so far. I have stitched all the way across, doing that little leapfrog stitch. I'm going to give it a couple extra stitches right here on the very end. This is the inside of the mask. Here's the outside of the mask. Now we've stitched that from the inside. We've stitched that right across the edge, but that's not going to show up because you're going to use thread that's the same color as your mask. Then I'm going to just tie it off, and I'm going to do the exact same thing right over here on the other raw edge. Okay, here's the back side of our mask. I have stitched this side and this side. See, this is our silent side. It's the same color as our fabric. And here is our back side. The very final thing that I will do is take our elastic and pull it through this casing right here. What I've done is taken a large needle and pulled it through. See, very simple. Now you can just simply tie that to the size that you need that for your mask. If you don't have a big needle like this, you can simply take a small safety pin and pin it into the end of your elastic or your yarn, and then push it through the ends just like this. You're going to push and feed with your fingers. And you're going to feel that as that goes all the way through the end. Right at the end, you're going to have to work it a little bit to try to get it out that side. So it might take you more than one try. Here it is, just like that. Very simple. Take that off and tie it just like you did this one. And your mask is done. Okay, here's our finished mask. Simply put it on. You're good to go. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked this video. Please like and subscribe.